and it certainly is not Zach Wilson. So in theory, if you had Baker Mayfield on that Jets team this year, they may have been a playoff team.
All right, Mike, a little bit of a preview and maybe a little preemptive, but you know what? Since we have the Pro Bowl games this week and there's really no true football on, and it's gonna, I'd say the week after the Super Bowl is the status week of the, whole sports year. We're going to start looking a little bit ahead. March 13th begins the NFL free agency. Most importantly, this is when teams can maybe say, hey, we don't have a good draft pick, Carolina, and we need to figure out what we're going to do to resolve the holes that we have in this lineup. So, Mike, we're going to go down the list of top free agent picks by position, starting with quarterback. The two that come to mind right off the bat is, of course, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, and then secondly, Baker Mayfield. Starting with those two, because really those are the only two that really matter on that list. We'll review the others a little later, but out of those two, do you see any teams that are going to be vying, competing, racing as if they're going to, get the last cinnamon roll during chili and cinnamon roll day at elementary school lunch? Who's going after Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield?
You know what, Dirk? I've got an odd possibility for Kirk Cousins, and obviously he's going to have to knock down his salary expectations significantly from what he wants. He's no longer going to be the highest paid quarterback in football. That was one of the dumbest moves that Minnesota ever made. But if Kirk Cousins is willing to take a giant pay cut, let me throw this out there. This might sound absolutely insane, but if Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl or if he loses the Super Bowl, there's still a shot in either case San Francisco moves on from him because his contract expectations might grow for, you know what I mean? Like he might be fetching pretty big contract offers, and there might be a shot at Kirk Cousins coming in.
That's, honestly, how sad of a situation would that be? Darnold takes him to the Super Bowl, or sorry, not Darnold. Darnold is going to be a part of that Super Bowl team, though. But, Purdy takes him to the Super Bowl, and then they move on, talk about relevancy. But I like it, and I actually think that's a smart move. Even if he ends up just being a backup, Mike, think about this. I mean, like, how many teams needed a significant and true backup, right? Not only that, I mean, that brings back, Kirk Cousins going back to the Shanahan staff after being, you guess, reunited with Shanahan, and you like that, right, Mike? You like it.
I actually don't know what Brock Purdy's contract status is. I don't know what year in his contract he is, when his rookie contract is up. But in theory, if his rookie contract was up, or the 49ers were going to have to pay him a bunch of money, there's an actual chance they might moneyball it once again and go to someone like Cousins. Now, Mayfield, on the other hand, I think is garnering some interest as far as a possibility. Now, this would be weird, but the Denver Broncos could look in the way of Baker Mayfield if they're willing to, again, try to moneyball some things. Now, I don't know that that's the right direction for Sean Payton's team, but Mayfield has played his way into, again, being considered as a starting quarterback, assuming that he's not expecting massive money. Now, I don't know. Dirk, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Pity all of Broncos country if that happens. I'm just saying, look, Baker Mayfield is truly the Mendoza line. We talked about it as a joke before, but I mean, that's truly like, you're scraping at the bottom of the barrel, and there's nothing against Baker. Look, I think he did. The Browns would have been better to stay with Baker. Let's talk honestly, right? This whole thing with Deshaun Watson has been an absolute disaster. And, I would not like to see that happen. Now, there's some interesting teams that probably garner a lot of interest with him, right? If you're looking at the likes of the Atlanta Falcons in the near-term future, you're not going to invest in a first-round quarterback, or you'll be fools to do so. So I think you're kind of looking towards free agency. And, I mean, let's talk about some of the others that are on the list of who's on free agents. Joe Flacco is one that will be a free agent coming up. Now, after his postseason performance, his stock's probably a little bit down, but he's still one that has a couple years and maybe even some backup potential, right? And that's probably where he goes. Gardner Minshew is another one that has free agency potential. I mean, he did well with the Colts. The Colts have a ton of cap space this year. He may stick around just because of how Anthony Richardson is. But, I mean, that's another one. But going back to what I was saying before, I think Atlanta staying in that division has significant interest in him. Tampa Bay also, he gained a lot of fans down there. I could see Tampa Bay extending a contract with Baker Mayfield too. Now, just some others around the league. I mean, Derek Carr did not play well. I'm sorry, that Saints team does not look good. That whole division is kind of in need of quarterbacks, right? And there's not really one that sticks out to me that is like, hey, this is the guy. I mean, the other one that is, of mind when you're really kind of thinking about it is depending upon what happens, in Chicago, you could see them move to a Baker Mayfield type depending upon what they want to do with their first round picks, right? Sure. But I just think that there is significant interest. Baker Mayfield's stock is way up after the way he played this year. And we'll just see. Also, some other ones to think about, Mike, and I pitch it back to you. Do you think the likes of Sam Darnold, Josh Dobbs, or Mason Rudolph, all of which who are going to be free agents this year, have any significant chance of being a starter in the coming year?
If someone gets hurt, maybe. No, I don't foresee any of those guys becoming an actual starter because there are so many college quarterbacks coming out into the draft class too. And even though, maybe day one, yes, you might have a weird scenario where Sam Darnold is starting in front of a rookie for a minute, but even that seems like a stretch. Dobbs and Mason Rudolph, no way, absolutely no way. There's no chance. No, and honestly, a weird scenario to think about too with Baker Mayfield. I think the Broncos might be too hamstrung by Wilson's contract to actually look in that direction. Another team that's hamstrung by a contract that could look in his direction because there's so much uncertainty, but I don't know they have the financial resources, is the New York Jets. Of course, you've got Rodgers at age, 42 or whatever, coming off an Achilles tendon tear. It's pretty uncertain what their future really holds. And it certainly is not Zach Wilson. So in theory, if you had Baker Mayfield on that Jets team this year, they may have been a playoff team. Probably would have been a playoff team, I would think, if he was over there.
I think you're right on there, Mike. Now, the Jets are kind of lining up in kind of a weird, quasi-weird situation with their cap space. But, the other thing to think about is that the Jets, if they aren't going to get, Devontae Adams, like we've said before, they are probably going to use their first round pick on a wide receiver. I'm guessing that's where they're going. They need a little bit of help and depth. Sorry, Randall Cobb and all of the ex-Green Bay players. It's not working, right? I know there was a matter of 5 plays before Aaron Rodgers was hurt this year, but I just see that they need support at that level. They need offensive linemen too. So it would be weird to see them use an early draft pick on a quarterback, but I wouldn't put it past them because you got to look towards the future. Aaron Rodgers is 40, and it wouldn't be bad to have someone sit behind Rodgers a couple of years. Look what happened with Love.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible.